Chris, thank you very much for joining me today for our virtual coffee chat. Maybe we'll just start off and get you to introduce yourself and your role.
Thanks for having me, Jason, and the Phelps Group. I'm a senior director of solution engineering at Salesforce. I have been in the role about 6 years, 3 of those in the office, in hubs, as we call it, at Salesforce, and 3 of those remotely, working from home with remote teams all across USA. You've got to welcome home life, right, into your work. So as I sit here and we've all had flashes of children or a dog or a wife or just some noise, whatever it is, that can't be a tense moment. That's got to be welcomed, and you've got to enjoy it together. And I was just on a call with one of my top leaders and invited his daughter in to come and say hi, and it just makes it real. I think the other thing on that vein is you got to let people take care of home life, like take care of business, as I call it. And business isn't just your work, right? Whether I've got to be on a call cooking lunch for the kids, or I encourage my team, do a walking meeting, get on the bike. If it's one where you're listening and you're learning, or don't have to be too interactive, get some steps in. So there's lots of things there. And the other thing is just book time away, book time with your family, book time to homeschool your kids or just get them outside. The second point on that, and I'll pause there, stress happens to everybody in different ways. And again, I think you got to take that very serious as a leader, as a mentor, and even as a friend. Obviously, you can quickly look at parents with children at home, like unlike no other time. Trying to manage that's huge, but it's not just parents with children and children of a certain age. Think about people, and I have some people on my team that living, smack dab in the middle of Manhattan or San Francisco, and normally those are some of the coolest condo pads that you'd want to live in. But right now they're quarantined and they're living alone, and they can't leave. They're getting groceries delivered, et cetera, et cetera. And that in itself is extremely stressful. And there's only so many phone calls and video calls with your friends and family to make it better. So, whatever you can do there, you've got to, I think the point is just that everybody's going through stress of some kind, like they've never experienced before. And you've got to think about that and do what you can as a leader to help them through that. And that includes yourself. You're not immune to that as a leader just because you carry the title. Trust your team are doing their work, right? It's as a new leader at home, you may get mired with, are they really at their desk working? You've got to get over that in a hurry, right? And there's lots of ways to ensure the work's getting done, and we can get into the detail there, but you've got to trust your team, right? The second one is just more personal reflection. Just details about me. I love my bike commute. I made a promise to myself when I joined Salesforce, because I could start commuting on my bike to the office. I'll never work at another place again where I can't make my way on my bike. It was that significant in my life, health-wise and fun. I mean, it was so fun to start your day on a bike and then get to work. Coming home 3 years ago, as I mentioned earlier, I started working remote. I actually still had the option to go to the office, and I did primarily. All my team would be at home, and they'd always say to me, "Why are you in the office?" And I'm like, "'Cause my bike." It was part of my routine. But as I started to realize, also part of my routine were kids' activities, and hockey season hit for us, and those practices are pretty early in the day. I mean, you can't really leave work too early. The benefits of working remote start to show, right? If your child has a hockey practice or any activity at 5 or 6 when they're younger, being remote and being able to just jump up from your desk, run downstairs, load them in the car, and off you go, it starts to be really convenient. The problem with that, and what you really have to work hard at remote, is you got to take care of yourself, right? It's too easy to sit down in the morning, start cranking away at work, and there's always an email to read in this day and age. There's always an instant message to read, right? And all of a sudden it's 4:35, whatever, 5:30, and it's time to jump up and, as I just said, get those kids off to the next thing. And I think that for me, it took me about 4 months. And I just finally got into a pretty healthy routine where get up in the morning, settle the kids, and then go for a run or get out and get your fitness in. Because if you don't do it early, I know myself, I'm not going to do it. So it's just things for yourself you've got to figure out and have a healthy routine that, again, is not all work. You've got to have that work-life health balance. You got to figure out being a remote worker. I've always said, figure out the key performance indicators, the KPIs that for each person that will measure their success, right? If they're a computer developer, you need them to be delivering a certain number of lines of code or applications finished, right? If you're more on the administrative side of things, it's going to be very much project or deliverable based, and you can interact a lot with people there. And the other thing, and this is a culture thing at Salesforce, and also I've always brought into any of my leadership, is just very open communication and a lot of feedback. So, we're just interacting a lot, and we're reviewing work a lot and discussing different approaches a lot. And it's hard to hide from a lot of that when you're very active and involved. Often in a 30-minute meeting, you're done in 15. Every once in a while when you're on with your team, don't be afraid to continue on and just have a chat. Just like you finish a meeting in an office and y'all just hang out for a bit, or you go to the kitchen together and fill your coffee and you start talking about the weekend or your favorite camping trip, right? Or you bump into someone in the hall, right? Simulate that stuff on video. And we just did one today where my leaders, we discuss hiring every week for half an hour. We all finished in 15 minutes, and we stayed on for another 10, and we all just talked about what's going on this weekend, and just among us leaders, and had some laughs and smiles, and it really makes a difference. So it's like, don't be so rigorous that we're done, hang up, next. It's, be human about it and hang out for a bit. The convenience of life, that, like I alluded to that earlier. I can't imagine that, let's call it an hour. And a lot of us either drive or just getting ourselves across public transit, you name it. I can't imagine anymore that hour in the morning and hour at night lost. And unfortunately, a lot of those hours are just continuing work. But the productivity in those 2 hours that you gain, and whether it be for your family or for your work, is enormous.
This has been a great session, Chris. I really appreciate your time today on this. And I think I'm hearing, I've heard a number of ideas and lessons that I think we're going to implement more in our firm as we become more and more remote. So truly appreciate your time today. This has been quite helpful, and we will speak again soon.
Thanks for having me. Fun to chat. Take care.